I had these patients eat a lot of raw cruciferous vegetables, and I didn't notice really any of them where their thyroid hormone levels decreased. I can't tell you how many patients, as well as non-patients, have told me that they stopped eating broccoli because they read that it's bad for the thyroid. This is Dr. Eric, and in this Q&A episode, I am going to answer the question, can you eat broccoli if you have a thyroid condition? By the end of this episode, you'll know what goitrogens actually are, which is what I'm mentioning here, what cruciferous vegetables are, type goitrogenic food, as well as whether or not they're truly concerned. If you've ever Googled what not to eat with thyroid issues, chances are broccoli, kale, as well as cauliflower were on that list. Suddenly, the very vegetables we've been told are healthy become suspect. So what's the truth? The concern is that if you consume goitrogenic foods, it can make you hypo, or at least more hypothyroidism, or even a non-autoimmune case of hypothyroidism, and they eat cruciferous vegetables, that it can make them even more hypothyroid, potentially also leading to a goiter, which is a swelling of the thyroid gland. But the good news is, so let's start with the basics. What are goitrogens? So goitrogens are naturally occurring compounds found in certain vegetables that can interfere with iodine uptake in the thyroid. And cruciferous vegetables definitely fall under that category of goitrogenic foods. Broccoli, kale, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. However, this doesn't mean that cruciferous vegetables will cause harm. And I should say, so what is the concern with goitrogenic foods as far as interfering with iodine uptake in the thyroid? So iodine is important for the formation of thyroid hormone. So the concern is that if you consume goitrogenic foods, that it can make you hypo, or at least more hypo. So if someone has, let's say, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or even a non-autoimmune case of hypothyroidism, and they eat cruciferous vegetables, that it can inhibit iodine uptake and make them even more hypothyroid, potentially also leading to a goiter, which is a swelling of the thyroid gland. But the good news is that for most people, eating cruciferous vegetables, especially when they're cooked, won't cause thyroid problems. But even raw, in most cases, isn't going to cause an issue. So the evidence shows, first of all, the research that's out there, it's pretty much on mice, on rats, no human studies that I'm aware of. Now, yes, I've had over the years, there have been some patients, or non-patients as well, who claim that when eating cruciferous vegetables, they notice a difference in their thyroid, like their thyroid swelling, for example. And I always say, listen to your body. So if that happens to you, then maybe you should cut out cruciferous vegetables. But in most cases, moderate consumption is safe. And of course, there are many really good health benefits of eating cruciferous vegetables. It's a good source of fiber, antioxidants, sulforaphane, helps to support phase 2 detoxification. And so is there anybody that should be cautious about eating cruciferous vegetables if someone has Hashimoto's or a non-autoimmune hypothyroid condition? Well, I mean, first of all, Hashimoto's is typically not caused by low iodine. Remember, Hashimoto's is more of an immune system condition than a thyroid condition. If you are looking to do everything you can to save your thyroid, in addition to watching my videos on YouTube, you also might want to subscribe to my free online newsletter, which is called Healthy Gut, Healthy Thyroid. Not only will you get the latest news on how to heal your gut and restore your thyroid health, but during each edition, I'll demonstrate a different blood or functional medicine test marker that relates to healing your gut and/or your thyroid. There will also be an Ask Dr. Eric section where not only can you see questions that other people have asked related to gut and thyroid health, but you can also submit a question for me to answer in a future edition. To subscribe to the Healthy Gut, Healthy Thyroid newsletter, please visit savemythyroid.com/newsletter. Now, that being said, if someone does have very low iodine levels, like if you do a urinary iodine test and they're very low, maybe they should avoid cruciferous vegetables. Even in that case, I'm not sure. Another scenario is if someone's eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables, like if someone's eating 5 cups of raw broccoli per day, that might be a concern. Again, even that, I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is because I also work with a lot of people with hyperthyroidism, including a lot of people with Graves' disease. And I mentioned this on previous podcasts where many years ago, I experimented with some patients with Graves who were looking to avoid the antithyroid medication. And again, I never tell anybody not to take any antithyroid medication, but in this situation with specifically pregnant women who are looking to avoid antithyroid medication. And everything comes down to risk versus benefits. And I mean, there are definitely risks with taking antithyroid medication, but there's also risks of unmanaged hyperthyroidism. And so I had these patients eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, a lot of raw cruciferous vegetables, and I didn't notice really any of them where their thyroid hormone levels decreased, where their symptoms or hyperthyroid symptoms decreased. So in other words, really, I didn't notice their hyperthyroidism being managed by eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables. So I intentionally recommended large amounts of cruciferous vegetables to my hyperthyroid patients many years ago and really didn't see a difference. Now, if you're still concerned about goitrogens, even hearing me say this, steaming them or sauteing, lightly roasting them reduces the goitrogenic activity. So you certainly don't have to eat them raw. I mean, I personally eat both raw and cooked cruciferous vegetables. Sometimes I'll add broccoli, raw cauliflower, raw kale to my smoothies, but I also enjoy eating some cooked cruciferous vegetables. For example, steamed broccoli with olive oil and garlic, for example. Also, cooking can help in some cases boosting the bioavailability of certain nutrients. So anyway, instead of fearing these foods, I want you to feel empowered by them. And so remember that broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables, there are allies, not our enemies. And again, they have so many great benefits. I mentioned earlier some of the great benefits, the sulforaphane supporting detoxification, antioxidant properties. So again, I do recommend for most of my patients with hyperthyroidism and Hashimoto's to eat cruciferous vegetables. But again, I always say, listen to your body. So that is my answer to the question. Can you eat broccoli if you have a thyroid condition? Most people can. Most people do not need to avoid cruciferous vegetables. But again, cook them if you're concerned. Think balance, not fear. And if you found this episode helpful and you want to dive deeper into how food and nutrients play a role in helping with your thyroid condition, especially if you have hyperthyroidism, I do have a book called The Hyperthyroid Healing Diet that you might want to check out. If you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I also have a book, Hashimoto's Triggers, where it doesn't focus on diet in that book, but I do talk about diet a good amount in that book as well. So as usual, I hope you found this Q&A episode to be super valuable, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode.